Welcome to your Barbados Today Evening News Update for Monday, July 6th. A normal business day for tenants of Pyramid Mall number 22 Swan Street got off to a rough start today. When they attempted to enter the building, they discovered the locks on the front door had been changed. The tenants claimed the landlord unfairly locked them out because they refused to pay rent for the 2 months the country was on lockdown at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, after police intervened, the landlord reopened the mall, but he told media some tenants who owe him as much as 6 months' rent have been refusing to pay despite his best efforts to recoup the outstanding funds.
If I don't like the mall, the bank owner like the mall. Go and pay your bills and let us be friends. I give you 6 months and over. This man, he is in and let's collect the hand and he still owing 6 months. You're telling lies. You're telling lies. All right. I thought you're telling lies. You're not in hand.
In other news this Monday, Chairman of the CARICOM Reparations Commission, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, today proposed a reparations summit so the region could sit at the table with Britain and Europe to discuss how they could honor their debt to the Caribbean. Speaking during an online discussion, From Apology to Action, CARICOM's call for reparatory justice, Sir Hilary said the colonial mess that the region inherited from Britain and Europe remains visible in every aspect of Caribbean life. He argued that they deliberately chose to walk away and left the mess to the leadership of Caribbean governments and civil society, and an apology was not good enough.
Apologies are not enough. Apologies are precursors for reparations. Apologies are signals of an intent to participate in a reparatory process. Apologies are stage one of an effort that says we acknowledge the harm we have caused and we are prepared to enter phase two, which is a discussion and a negotiation about how to repair that harm and that suffering that continues to be the legacy in the Caribbean today. This is where we are. This is a moment for responsible leadership. This is not the time to continue to brush this matter under a carpet. There is no carpet in the world that is large enough to conceal and contain this legacy that must now be confronted and removed.
The proposed meeting has the full backing of Prime Minister Mia Mottley. She made it clear that reparation is not about money, but simply about justice. She argued that while regional governments have been making every effort to make a better life for their citizens, they can only go so far without reparations.
I want to support strongly the Commission's call for an encounter not just with the UK, but with the European countries, the European Union. The European Union has in its crafting of its unity as a regional movement premised itself on a human rights convention that in no way accepts that anything that happened during the course of slavery and colonialism could be right. If it is not right now under the European Convention of Human Rights, to which the United Kingdom and others belong for many decades, it cannot be right for them to have done it before the formation of the Union. It cannot be right for us to accept that persons should, with no remorse, keep the proceeds of illicit gains from a crime against humanity without seeking to create a development compact for the people of this region. The fact that others, such as universities and enterprises, benefited, we agree, must also be held to account for their actions today with respect to wanting to right size and put balance back on the table. No one is asking for anything other than fairness.
In other news this Monday, efforts are in motion to spruce up Oistins Bay Garden. Tenants and the National Conservation Commission have teamed up to make the area a world-class attraction. Ralph Thorne, the Member of Parliament for Christchurch South, disclosed today that he has been holding talks with the NCC and operators in Bay Garden, and the two sides have found common ground on ways to improve the area. Meanwhile, fisherfolk at Oistins today made a generous donation of fish to vulnerable families. Spokesman Ryan Bourne said they're happy to give back.
We recognize that since the pandemic that people's lives been distracted in a portfolio, and the government has allowed us to continue to ply our trade while other people had to close down theirs. So we want to give back to the country of Barbados by just donating some fish. We recognize that despite the country might be open back, there's a lot of people who still home and not working. And although the people who are already going back to work still have to take time to cash back whatever they have lost for the time that they were home. So we want to, at Oistins, want to donate these fish to the needy, and all who receive them, we will hope that they will greatly appreciate it.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To regional happenings, the Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown serves notice that he's prepared to be a lone ranger if that's what it takes to save regional carrier LIAT. Despite plans afoot to liquidate the airline, he maintains shareholder governments are making the wrong decision. We get more from ABS Television.
Speaking on his weekly radio show on Point FM, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, the Honourable Gaston Brown, reaffirmed the government's position to save the beleaguered carrier.
We have already indicated to the existing shareholders that we're not seeking any financial commitments from them. And if Antigua and Barbuda has to go it alone, even though that is not our desire, to create a new LIAT 2020, we're prepared to do so.
In a recent meeting with stakeholder governments surrounding LIAT's liquidation and its impact on the region, PM Brown says discussions to establish a new LIAT were immediately shut down.
So my recommendation was that we discuss the matter off the record. And unfortunately, two of the shareholders who constitute the majority would have none of it. So they held on to a narrow legal point and prevented me from, making certain representations.
The Prime Minister says he intended to request 30 days to allow for a restructuring of the airline, and should that fail, for the creation of a new LIAT. He says the opportunity provided by COVID-19 should be used by regional stakeholders to address the problems faced by LIAT and not to allow its demise.
Antigua does not accept that. It is an opportunity for us to go to the staff and say to them that you have no choice, you have to take a haircut. If it's 50%, fine. Obviously, we have to do a plan to determine what level of cuts will place LIAT on a sustainable pathway.
On the international front, the wrongs of the past must be acknowledged. That's the view of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex as they weighed in on the Queen's Commonwealth Trust weekly video call, which today focused on the Black Lives Matter movement.
Certainly when you look across the Commonwealth, there's no way that we can move forward unless we acknowledge the past. And I think so many people have done such an amazing, incredible job of acknowledging the past and trying to right those wrongs. But I think we all acknowledge on here that there is so much more still to do. It's not going to be easy, and in some cases it's not going to be comfortable, but it needs to be done because guess what? Everybody benefits. So I think there's a hell of a lot that we together need to acknowledge, but I only see hope and optimism in the fact that we could only do this together.
We have to, in this moment in time, say, we're going to have to be a little uncomfortable right now because it's only in pushing through that discomfort that we get to the other side of this and find the place, as you're pointing out, where a high tide raises all ships. Equality does not put anyone on the back foot. It puts us all on the same footing, which is a fundamental human right. And that's what we're talking about here.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.